Welcome, everybody, to the show. As we wait for Doc to arrive, hopefully he is not having technical problems. You never know exactly what's going on. They did send me some literature that I will be sharing with us later this evening, but in the meantime, let me introduce our co-host and fellow traveler, Dan, the Dan Noodles Man, the Rico Suave of wargaming.
Rico Suave.
I'm just saying.
You know, he was in... He was into Madonna. Excuse the pun.
Okay. Anyway.
Furball.
All right. Let's try and I just want to make sure I talk for a minute here, Dan, so I know what's going on.
No, I sing when you don't talk.
All right. I'm just checking for technical problems on my end. I'm not seeing any technical problems on our end. Of course.
No, maybe
it is always Dan's fault. It is the deplorable Canadian exchange rate.
You know what? Can I say a fishing story?
Sure. You're wearing the hat for it, so why not?
So, anyways, by the way, it wasn't a subliminal seduction type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so one day we go fishing, right? And it's a whole gang of us, and the guys are older than me, but it doesn't matter. So we're having a few brews, and my friend Ron says, "Dan, why don't you go pick up the battery engine, the trolling engine, and the next camp?" Sure, he goes, "Here, take my truck." The truck he gives me, a truck. It was a brand new SUV. I forget what they're called. It was brand new, right? Leather inside and everything. Everything was beautiful. So I go pick up the engine, and I'm with some guy. I take the trolling engine, which has a long steel bar. I put it in the back, right? Then I have to pick up the battery.
Mm-hmm.
So I pick up the battery and I put it, in the middle of the trunk of this whatever SUV it is. Anyways, on my way back, bumpy road, I'm hearing soldering. Someone is soldering in the back, in the trunk. And I turn to my friend, I say, "Do you hear someone soldering, man?" He goes, "I don't know." And I look in the rearview mirror, and the back of the car is on fire. What happened is the trolling pole that I put in the beginning, the battery fell on it, and it's made out of steel. Both connections from the battery stuck on the pole. I burnt this goddamn truck.
Alrighty then. What a fabulous anecdote that is.
I burnt this truck, and the thing is, says it's always Dan's fault. One guy comes up to me and he says, "It's always you." I swear that's why I had that story.
All right, folks, I'm not sure what's happening with Doc, but unless I hear something, in which case I will pass it along to you. Dan, let's take a quick look at this fabulous screen aid that they sent me. This is, as far as I know, this is actually, I guess, let me start out by saying that Decision is kind of mid-website upgrade, so you might find that certain things don't work anymore, even though the site basically looks the same, but it actually is an improvement. It's just, they're doing it little bits at a time, that's all. So this information wasn't on the Decision Games website, but it is now, I think. So what's at the printer is kind of a lot of stuff, actually, like almost a GMT level of stuff, right?
Yeah, but look at the dates that they have. They're far in advance. They're 2 years in advance.
They're planning it out well in advance, and it'd be great to talk to Doc and ask him how far ahead they're working. And maybe he'll pop in. Hopefully he does. If he doesn't, then I'll send him an email and tell him, "Doc, what the hell's going on?" So Battles in the East #3. This is Tony Burkett's series, the highly anticipated. This has gone over very well. It is a very easy to play series. It's kind of a loose adaptation of the old Army Group South Quad, along with some other ideas from classic war games, and it's all very palatable, right? It's easy to play. There's like 8 pages of rules and like 1 page of game-specific rules, and there's basically 2 games in each box.
Barry, can you give us an approximate of what you think the game will cost?
About $100. That's my guess. I don't know. But something like that. There'll probably be a pre-order price that might be a little cheaper, but the previous 2 volumes I think were an even 100, I think.
And Like we're talking, what kind of a box? A RAF type
It's a
of
2-inch.
box?
No, is it? Well, it's a two. Yeah, it's a nice sturdy box, but it's a 2-inch box. I mean, I'm assuming it's the same format as the volumes 1 and 2, and there's no reason why it wouldn't be. But it's going to be a 2-inch box with one 2-sided mounted mat board and 2.5 or 3 counter sheets, something like that. 5/8 inch counters. I will mention. So there's that. And then we got Battles for the Ardennes. The legendary Danny Parker's legendary Ardennes squad is coming back in a deluxe edition, which will have presumably have a mounted map and all that fancy stuff. That'll be awesome.
How old was the prior game?
I mean, the original was like 1976, 77, something like that. 78, maybe.
And it's a what? It's a what's that other company? SPI. Is that an SPI?
Yeah. That's an SPI game. Decision has done it before, at least once, maybe even twice. This will be in one of their kind of what they're calling deluxe editions now, which is kind of just a fancier way to say it's got a mounted map and thick counters and all that stuff. Right. Now, there's some things, because I talked to Doc about a lot of this stuff at WBC, bear in mind. So there were some things that if I had seen this list in June, I would have been like, really? And one of them we're about to get to. Red Dragon Green Crescent, I think, was a modern hypothetical out of Modern War, and they're doing that in a deluxe edition. I don't know a lot about that game, but I can tell you, I haven't the vaguest idea. I can tell you that it is one of the highest rated Modern War games. I could ask Danny this, actually, but my guess is that the answer is probably no. But I could be wrong. You know, I've been wrong before. I've been known to occasionally be full of it. That's been known to happen. Let me fix the layout a little bit here. There we go. That's better. All right, but probably not. But I mean, it's a 50-year-old game at this point. 50? Probably more than that. So I don't really need... You know, Danny had his say, and where Danny's at right now is with Last Gamble, right? So I'm not sure that it would even be appropriate to approach Danny to do that. And then Operation Typhoon. You know what this is, right, Dan?
Wait, I know that. Hold on. What do I have grease in my head?
It's this Operation Typhoon.
Excuse me.
The SPI Operation Typhoon. I had no idea they were even thinking of redoing that.
And they're redoing the whole shebang.
With 5/8 inch counters. Yep. It's going to be 4 maps, I believe.
I never seen you so excited there, Gary.
I'd be happy to buy a new version of Operation Typhoon. I can't wait to see it.
We're talking 300 beans easy.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it could be. I have no idea. I have no idea what the price is going to be on that.
That's a hell of a production.
It's a big game. It's gonna be a big game. It's gonna be comparable in size to your average Gauss game, certainly. And then this stuff starting with Iwo. That's the Iwo Jima Solitaire game. That actually supposed to be pretty good. There's some video on it on YouTube that I've watched, possibly from Stuka Joe. I'm not sure I remember. That's a folio though, so it's relatively inexpensive. Also, Kirchholm Mini, which is a Pike and Shot series game. That's one of the minis. I haven't played that. Merrill's Marauders, which seems to have been reasonably warmly received, as well as Rogers Rangers. And those are all.
I wonder how much they print of those minis and.
I would imagine their print runs aren't crazy large, but are these events connected?
Oh, I don't get it.
Maybe Stigler right now is aiming a rifle at Doc's ear, I believe.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So yeah, this is exactly what I said. I'm like, really awesome. I'm happy to do that. And then for 2025, they've got stuff. They might push some additional stuff into this queue at some point, but we'll see. So these 3 things are almost ready to go to the printer. Campaigns in Europe expansion kit. So what this is there's going to be 4 issues of World at War magazine that contain the 4-game series Campaigns in Europe. Okay, the first one it was Drive on Leningrad. The second one was Case Blue. There should be a unboxing video with that on the channel on Thursday. And then there's 2 more coming. The expansion kit will basically add a bunch of counter sheets and a bunch of additional scenarios, as well as multi-map scenarios. So you'll be able to kind of play it all together. even though this is kind of a War in Europe adaptation, I think it's probably a mistake to think of this as an attempt to redo War in Europe. It's really kind of its own thing, just played on kind of a revised set of War in Europe maps, right? Blue and Gray's coming back. Stigler will be thrilled. What can I say?
Hey, Meandering Mike, I hope you're doing better, man, because you looked like death run over at one point.
Well, maybe. Carrier Battle Group Deluxe Edition. That's probably one of the magazine games. That's something I'd have to look up. That's one I don't have and haven't really looked at all at. So, sorry, folks. We've had some technical problems, I think, and Doc is still not with us, but hopefully he will pop in and we can ask him questions. In the meantime, they sent me this handy visual aid that I am happy to. So it's not like my email went to spam, right? I know that didn't happen because they got back to me. 2025. So we should see these things in 2025 at some point. The fourth volume of Battles in the East. And Tony is at least thinking about a Battles in the West, too. That may have been private. I'm not sure. But that's not, as far as I'm aware, in any pipeline. But I believe Tony has thought about it, at least.
Hold on a second. Battles in the East, number 3. Battles in the East, number 4. What are we talking about? Like what? Battles in the East, North Army. What the hell am I trying to say?
It's all over the place. They tend to be not Barbarossa scenarios based on the first one, but they're basically operational battles. If you want to think scope-wise, they're all East Front battles that are kind of similar in scope to, say, a Panzergruppe Guderian, where it's one operational map, right? Except these are way fancier.
So these are actually big games, man.
I wouldn't call them huge games, but there's a decent amount of value in these boxes. Yeah, I would agree. Even Stigler bought. I will point out, even Stigler bought the first two, or at least one of the first two.
He won't like that, man.
So the fourth one is probably going to hit in 2025, along with what I've been calling most of the time Gauss Market Garden. It's actually called Over the Rhine. Joe Biaus, the designer, has been finished with the maps on this for some time, and it's just kind of been a matter of time before they get all the playtesting done. I know Doug Johnson's involved as well. So,
Ardy, what's the issue with Gauss? Why does Gauss need to be named?
What do you mean? Why does it need to be named?
Well, look, Over the Rhine Battles in the East, number 4. There's no system named, so why is Gauss named as a system?
Gauss is what are you talking? I'm not sure I understand what you mean, because Gauss is the system.
Okay, so then why?
And that stands for Grand Operational Simulation Series.
Thank you very much. Now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, so there's this is going to be the fifth one, I think. The first one was Wacht am Rhein, which then itself got revised. Next, I want to say, was Hurtgen Hell's Forest. Then came Atlantic Wall. Then Lucky Forward, which is Patton's Lorraine campaign, more or less. This next one will be Market Garden. This system, for those of us who are familiar with this system, it's going to work really well with Market Garden. I'm all over this. So, and we've got let's say they're not necessarily all local, but we could put together an annual Gauss campaign here in the general area. So
but the thing is that these games, these are monster games, right? These Gauss games.
Yes, they are very much monster games.
So
and in fact, they're kind of mostly they're kind of non-modular monster games in that there's really not a good on-ramp to learning it with scenario, gradually building up in terms of scenarios.
So, so the ease of learning that system is once you've played one game, then you could go into another, like Wacht am Rhein, you said, right?
Yeah, the one thing is that there's kind of a standard set of logistics rules. But in several of the games, bear in mind there's five of them so far, you end up not using the logistics rules for at least one side. So Gauss is good for Market Garden because of the way that that campaign worked out, where road congestion is a big deal. That's built into Gauss already, into the way the movement works. The way the movement works is extremely clever, and it's one of the things I like best about Gauss. So you don't have to have special rules or any of that to handle roadblocks or road congestion or the bridge collapse because you drove a King Tiger over it, for example, and the bridge fell down. It's all built into the core system. I think Gauss is going to need other than whatever logistics things they need to do. I think we're going to be able, and whatever special terrain is found there, because we'll see Polder, I think, for the first time. I think there will be relatively little in the way of game-specific rules. Goss
Sorry.
Goss Hanut is really just, it's a really stripped down version of the game. I think it is worth your while. The neat thing about Hanut is, actually I forgot about Hanut when I listed the games. This is the one that appeared in World at War magazine. And it's a battle in Belgium, actually, in 1940. It's really stripped down. I mean, it's a 16-page rulebook stripped down from an 80-page rulebook. You do the math, right? But so it's not really an on-ramp to learning the full system, but what it will do is give you a taste of what the system has to offer. So it's more like a sampler than it is a learning scenario. So
look at Steve-O. Yeah. Now,
you know what? I'm not blaming. I'm not going to shame Steve for this at all. It's a difficult system. The early rule books, in particular, were absolutely atrocious. I'm glad to say that the rule books are a lot better now. So there's a big deal. This seems really kind of reasonable to me, to be honest about it.
What's difficult about the system?
It's just really complicated, and it's got a lot of interdependent rules. So if you could screw something up, and it can have carryover effects into a lot of other subsystems of the game.
Yes.
And the rulebook is the early rulebooks were atrocious. The current Goss rulebook, which debuted, I want to say, in Lucky Forward, is worlds better. Is it the greatest rulebook I've ever seen? No, but you could legitimately read the rulebook and understand the game from it. So this seems quite reasonable to me. And then we got 7 Days to the Rhine, which was the sort of final grand finale of Modern War magazine. It was the last 4 or 5 issues or whatever it was. So that's going to be a substantial game too, actually.
$140 for that game, that's wickedly reasonable.
I think so. If it's as big as I'm remembering it, yeah. So he's not wrong. However, I think Nathan Nathan made a tactical error in picking Atlantic Wall as his platform for doing this, because he got absolutely buried in that absolutely shitty beach landing minigame. I hate the beach landing minigame. The airborne drops minigame is actually, it takes a while. It probably takes longer than it should, but it's fun to do. The beach landings are horrific. It takes way too long. It's just drowning in minutia. It's awful. So I think Nathan probably kind of shot himself in the foot by picking that particular thing to do. Let me put it that way. I don't have a problem with the CRT at all. Once if you've used it once, you got it. It's not that complicated. It looks complicated. The CRT I'm talking, it looks more complicated than it is.
Ardy, I want to address Christopher de Klerk. Pictures, Christopher, they kind of help me a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
We're not talking about those kinds of pictures. So,
is that right?
Anyway, let's get back to this. 2026 Deluxe Editions, Napoleon at War. Has Decision redone Napoleon at War already? I don't remember that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. That's impressive. Also, 1812, SPI's 1812 Deluxe Edition. You're welcome, everyone. Decision will be redoing this because they heard that I got one. So they will now be redoing it.
That's hilarious.
Not even kidding.
Welcome, everybody.
Mm-hmm. And then Sixth Fleet, which is one of the games out of Modern War, which had a pretty good reaction. Fall of Rome, which is a revision of the old Fall of Rome game. I'm not sure how close it sticks to that. And then American Civil War, which is a redo of the old SPI, American Civil War. Not sure how much that changed either, because that's not an issue that I have.
Who's the designer?
Originally Jim Dunnigan, but I believe the revision from S&T 310 was probably Joe Miranda, but I might be mistaken about that. So, and then they've got something called Last Raiders. I don't know what that's about at all.
And it's a new design.
It's a new design. That's a good point, because a lot of this stuff, some of this stuff are new designs, right? But a lot of this stuff is older stuff, either older Decision stuff or old SPI stuff that they're bringing back, right, in some kind of deluxeified format. So, This is a pretty promising schedule, and they've got kind of a plan ahead for the next 2 years, right? And I can tell you, Doc's got plans farther than that, but that's just not on here, right?
Hey, Ardy, you think that this business, Decision Games, you can make a living on it?
Well, maybe, but I mean, again, you're probably making another strategic error if your goal is to make a living in this particular field. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
well,
saying?
you have to eat. You know what I'm saying? You got to.
Oh yeah, well that's exactly why you can't eat war games. Is what I'm saying.
Oh man, I don't know what happened to Doc. Then Doc really, Jesus, it's.
I mean, I literally took. I had correspondence with them as recently as yesterday. He could have. I mean, it's California. The wildfires could have got him. I don't know. So who knows? Let's hope everything is okay.
You know, my friend went. You're talking about California. He went camping up in Jasper, BC, and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was on the road when they shut down Jasper,
Mm-hmm.
and they would do like maybe a kilometer every 2 hours. That's how many cars there were on the road.
That's a lot. So as far as I know, anything that says Deluxe Edition will come with a mounted map. You'll notice that Operation Typhoon does not say Deluxe Edition. And again, I don't think Joe's a terrible designer, actually. I think Joe is a very interesting designer that is worth paying attention to. I will say that Joe's not the best rulebook writer in the business, but I don't think anybody would argue with me. Joe Youst might not argue with me about that.
You know, Struggle for the Galactic Empire was my first Joe Miranda game.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Why?
Because I think I bought my first Joe Miranda game sometime around 1988. So it might have been a couple years after that.
Yeah, no, man. I wasn't into SPI when I was younger. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I really enjoyed that game, man.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good game. I think that's got a lot going for it. It's very Asimovian in feel, which I appreciate.
Absolutely.
Much better than really at doing that particular thing than anything else I've seen. I mean, it's certainly more Asimovian than Traveler is, for example.
And he kind of nailed the Foundation series pretty good.
I think so. I mean, it's not like a serial numbers filed off type of thing, but it's definitely inspired by. I think it's actually a really good game. I would like to get more attention. I wouldn't mind if Decision put out a deluxe version of that. Actually, I'd think about getting that.
Well, don't we have a deluxe version? It's just a paper map.
It's just that's the only problem with it. It's just a paper map. But and the counters are the modern Decision counters are way thicker. I'll also point out that I've been a little frustrated with various older Decision things that I've been clipping because they got center nibs. Advanced, I don't have it here. Advanced Pacific Theater of Operations, not a center nib to be found in this whole game.
What's a center nib?
Like on the counters, where you got center nibs on the counters?
I never saw that.
Yes, you have. Trust me.
And you know what? I was just thinking about that today. Isn't that great for CHIT pull? If you put your hand in it and the center nib, you feel it, and you know that's the front side.
I guess. I don't know what kind of David Copperfield person you have to be to feel the center nibs on the counters inside a paper bag. But
seriously,
I like Joe as a war game map artist a lot as well. Now that's not to say that we didn't get a little frustrated with playing Vakdam Rhine on those maps because part of it's just the nature of the terrain. It's very congested terrain, and it's represented that way, and it's kind of hard to read some of the things. So indeed it did. Indeed it did.
Is Vakdam Rhine CHIT pull?
No, none of that. So. All right, so just for clarity's sake, the Decision version of Vakdam Rhine is a Gauss series game, okay? However, and Gauss evolves from some ideas that are present in some of the SPI titles, but it's really its own thing, right? So the Decision Vakdam Rhine should be considered a completely different game from the SPI Vakdam Rhine. And the same applies to Atlantic Wall. Totally different game. That might have been inspired in part by ideas from Vakdam Rhine and Atlantic Wall and Highway to the Reich.
Mark Herman's in the house. Be careful.
Mr. Herman, thanks for stopping by.
Watch out.
Maybe we should have Mark on since Doc's not here.
Does he want to come on? But ask him if he wants to come on.
We're going to probably have Mark back on before too much longer again anyway, to be fair. So, yeah, I mean, by the standards of today, yeah, it's going to totally feel basic, but
send them a link.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Mark, it's like we're in a pub, and Mark shows up. Hey, Mark.
Mark, I'm going to send you a link on Twitter. How about that? That's the fastest way to get it to you. There we go. In any case, the company war. I have seen the game. I haven't seen the inside of the box, but I have seen the game. I do remember this. Mayfair, not Mayfair. Yeah, that was Mayfair Games. Did a lot of this kind of stuff where they did a game, a licensed game on the Forever War. They did another game for Hammer Slammers. They did at least a couple other ones. Ancient One, device not connected. There we go. There he is. Mark, how's it going tonight?
I did not expect to see you guys live, but it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. We were supposed to have Doc for a decision on tonight, and there may have been some kind of technical problem. I'm not sure. We'll figure out. Send him an email after the show. It'll be fine.
I got to do something with the volume. No,
you're actually doing pretty okay.
Speakers. Give me a second.
Okay, do what you need to do. It's all good.
Yeah, I got to...
You got that Leonard Cohen look, man.
I think that's the haircut. Mark clearly got a haircut.
No, but even the voice there. There's a wraparound on his larynx, and it's very husky-ish to be.
It'd be a real shame, if this were to accidentally leak to the internet, Deadpool style, wouldn't it? We can hear you just fine, Mark. For the record.
We can hear you. So be careful. I hope you wore clean underwear.
Dan, while we wait for Mark to figure out whatever he's figuring out, what is your preference for maple syrup?
Me?
You are our subject matter expert on this topic.
Okay, so what do you say? Preference? What are you talking about?
Light, medium, or dark?
I am going to medium, dark.
Okay, I think that's completely reasonable.
But
how's it going over there, Mark?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sounds good, Mark.
Can you not hear us?
There's some kind of double reverb thing going on. I don't know.
Oh, that might be. You might have an extra microphone picking up feedback or something like that. We're not picking it up over the stream. I can tell you that.
Or maybe, Mark, they're listening.
Oh, I got an extra microphone.
It's always they.
All right, let me go check the microphone setting.
Doing things.
They're listening.
I've had that happen actually when I've had I've had a situation where the big microphone. I can't really pull it in front of the camera. The big microphone will be on, but there'll be another microphone picking up, and it'll cause... It's not really feedback, because it's all digital, but it produces a similar effect.
You see, look at Mark's facial expression.
By the way, on this subject, I'll have you know, just FYI, this is the fit for today.
The hell is that?
If you don't know, I'm not going to explain it to you.
There you go. I'm stupid.
It's a James Earl Jones thing, Dan.
I see.
So
I wanted to comment on Mark's facial expressions and the amount of energy he's using to figure out what's going on. As a musical performer, that energy could be channeled into your hands if you're playing piano. So that's wasted energy that Mark is using by squinting and using all these muscles. Those muscles, that energy can be transferred into whatever instrument you are playing. An embouchure for a sax, this and that. So Mark could have been a great person.
Did anybody in the audience understand a word that Dan just said? Because
if you're a musician, you understand.
Yes, well, I'm not. That explains everything. And yes, if you're a musician, Dan, this is a soundtrack you need to listen to immediately. I'm just saying.
What is that?
Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, you know what? I don't even know it. Who did it?
Basil Polidorus.
Well, he's Greek, so he's got some taste.
Well, I guess, but and he's dead, so there's that. But it's a good movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I'm not going to try and tell you it's one of the greatest movies of all time, but it's one of the best fantasy movies of all time. I'll take that over the Neverending Story or Labyrinth any day.
Would you take that Labyrinth even?
Yeah.
Would you take
honestly now part of my reticence with Labyrinth is I didn't see Labyrinth as a kid. I saw it when I was like 40. And I watched it like 10 minutes of it. And I'm like, nope, I'm out. I tapped out. I'm like, nope, this is just David Bowie with terrible Bowie music parading around in a giant codpiece. I'm just not into this. So I couldn't deal with it.
You weren't on psychedelics then?
Clearly not. I mean, that might have helped, I suppose.
Point.
Or it might have also helped if I were 11 when I saw it. So there's that.
And Carl is harassing me to watch Grosse Point Blank.
Well, you should watch Grosse Point Blank. It's a good movie. Now we cannot hear you, Mark.
Now we can't hear you. You look Italian when you're doing that, Mark.
So I was a huge fan of the John Carter stuff growing up as like a young teenager or maybe late preteen. And it was a long-held dream of mine for there to be a John Carter tabletop role-playing game, which is why I grabbed that back in the day. But that's not really what it is. But there is actually a John Carter role-playing game now from Modiphius. It's actually pretty good. So
well, hold on a second. Didn't Mark do one?
Yes.
Oh,
with a fabulous Don Mates cover, possibly the finest wargame cover ever done.
What did you pay for that? What'd you pay for that?
Like $100, something like that. It was expensive, but not crazy.
Is it a good game?
I don't know. I haven't played it yet, but I am absolutely 100% going to at some point. Marcus apparently everybody is having technical difficulties except for Dan and myself tonight.
Man, this is not happening.
I'm not a huge fan of like old-timey soundtracks for the most part. A lot of them sound the same to me. I don't feel like it was not until about the 60s where soundtracks, like movie soundtracks, became serious music.
Okay,
Dan if you want to correct me on this, Dan.
Whoa!
By all means, go ahead.
Whoa! Whoa! I don't even know what to say.
Okay, go ahead.
You got Bernard Herman dominating the world of film music, Alfred Hitchcock, and I don't know who else, but I'm just saying that maybe that's why it sounded the same. Oh, I think he did Robin Hood, Bernard Herman.
The Errol Flynn Robin Hood?
Yeah. Hey, look, they're classic. You know what?
Oh, yeah, they're classics, but they all sound the same, right? The soundtrack, I can, you might know the difference if I played a random piece of music from the Captain Blood soundtrack and a random piece of music from the Adventures of Robin Hood soundtrack. You might be able to tell the difference, but I think most people wouldn't be able to.
I know what you're saying. I know.
How about now? There you go.
It's not Ennio Morricone. That's
different, but he didn't start. I mean, I wasn't really aware of his work until about the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, he changed film music.
I think you're okay now, Mark. Right? Say something.
How you doing?
You're good. It's all good.
Okay.
Isn't technology awesome? Technology is awesome.
Yeah, there's something weird going with the sound on my end, but I'm not sure what to do about it at this point. So
it does sound a little bit like you've got a sock in your mouth, but other than that, it's fine. So
that's
we can hear you and make you out. Now I will defend Enrico Morricone.
What do you got? What's going on?
So, well, we're talking about just random stuff, I guess. We went through the Decision Games production schedule because that's what we're going to talk about with Doc. But
I got a question for Mark.
Well, go ahead.
Because Mark, you've got your tentacles in a lot of gaming.
Whoa, Mark! I didn't know you had tentacles.
I fixed it. You know what I had? I had it open as a stream and this. That was the problem.
Oh, yeah, that'll screw it up.
I was now good. It all works now.
Mark, if it makes you feel any better, I have also done that on my own stream. So
it's look, I'm going to turn 70. This is way beyond my technology.
It's been a while.
What was the question on the table? Anything, or we're just hanging out?
We're just kind of hanging out for the next 20 minutes or so is what it looks like.
Mark, are you a movie fan?
Yeah, of course.
Are you a music movie fan?
I mean, like musicals?
Like, no. Does the music strike you in a movie?
Well, like if you think about Blade Runner Vangelis, I mean, of course, there's just certain, there's some famous ones that I do know, but that's not particularly my area of expertise.
Okay, but I was going to say, what about something like Magnificent Seven?
That's got a wonderful soundtrack.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's what's his face? Bernstein.
Elmer Bernstein. That's right. Bernstein, that's what I was trying to think with. That's why the smoke was coming off of my head.
Like you see guys like him, guys like Ennio Morricone. Would you know an Ennio Morricone piece if it was played to you, Mark?
I don't know.
I guarantee you, Mark. I guarantee you would be familiar with several of them. Let me put it that way.
I've seen a lot of movies. I mean, I like movies. I've seen a lot of movies, and we got to remember something. I saw a lot of movies live that you guys only seen like in on TV. So
that's fair. There was a thing where they put Lawrence of Arabia back in theaters for a limited engagement recently.
Yeah. No, that's something.
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
The most impressive scene from the remake, I saw it in a theater in Washington, which is like the Ziegfeld. It's not called the Ziegfeld, but it's one of those, the screen goes across the planet Earth kind of places. And there's a scene where Allenby is talking to somebody in a room. And so one guy's at this end and one guy's at this end, and you're doing this. And it's the most impressive scene in the whole movie to me. I mean, the movie is amazing, but that just realizing that the screen was so big, you were like watching a conversation. You had to keep turning your head like a tennis match. It was great.
Okay, I'm glad we're talking about Lawrence of Arabia. So why did the Brits backstab all the Arabs? What happened?
Well, to start with, they were British. So there's that.
So let's start off with, white colonial powers always backstab whoever it was. So let's just start with that as a general theme. And, it was always about the oil, right? So as long as they had their guy or guys in power, they could, and by the way, the colonial method, if you go back to a lot of problems, is the British and the French and all those guys, they would take a minority and make them the educated leader class, and then when they left, it was like the minority over the majority, and that's what that's the history of a lot of these countries. Is the majority is going like, wait a minute, but they weren't the ones who went to Oxford, so they couldn't run they weren't trained to run the power plants and the rest of it.
It's funny, this colonialism. If we didn't colonize, I guess colonize is actually a bad word if you think about it.
Of course it is.
Okay, right. So if we didn't colonize certain societies and we were benevolent to them, do you think it would have turned the other way? Like they would have taken advantage of?
I got to tell you something. I mean, so look, it's a fascinating question. There's absolutely no possible answer to it. So let's just start with that. You got to remember, there's a really interesting book to read called Mayflower. And you've heard of Jamestown, haven't you? The famous Virginia, and they were wiped out at some point. When the guys on the Mayflower showed up, they showed up right after a epidemic of smallpox, and so they showed up in the only place in North America where there were no Native Americans in any quantity, and that's why they survived. And they walked around. They found these villages, and there was food, and there was nobody around. They were all dead basically, or they'd run off. And so they were able to kind of get established. And then Thanksgiving, which of course, I was taught as like, this benevolent, altruistic, no, the guys who owned that land, there was still some of them. And they came to the settlers and said, look, all the other guys in the crowd want to take our land. We want to hang with you. So it was a deal, So there's a lot of history that's just not, well, the book you guys might want to read is a book by a guy named Bruce Catton. He's very famous for Civil War books, but his last book is called The Bold and Magnificent Dream. It's the best book on the founding of this country from what actually happened. It's a phenomenal book.
The country or the continent?
Well, I'm talking about the founding of America, the colonies.
Mark, do you have an opinion on Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond?
I do. I think it's a phenomenal book.
Agree with that. I think it was very
Yeah.
eye-opening, even if you don't agree with all of his conclusions.
It's I actually have a degree in biology and in history, and it's the only book that ever actually made any sense to me about why the world is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a very controversial book, but
it is.
I feel like it's well supported and understood. His other book, what was it called? Chaos. Wherever the second book was, it wasn't anywhere near.
Yeah, it was like about the collapse of civilizations due to climate change
Easter
or something
Island,
like that.
It's the Easter Island and all, how climate, it was a little bit, it was like a theory in search of facts, but not bad. But the other one was phenomenal. Yeah.
Hey, I have I have something completely left field, Mark.
Oh, that's going to be a huge surprise to me. Go ahead.
Okay. You know what I mean?
As you can see, Mark has in fact been on the show before.
And I get Dan, but I get Dan. Go ahead. Where are we going? We're on the left field now.
I just want to be educated, for God's sakes, man.
Well, that would be novel.
Okay, so Mark, today I posted something and I said, all these new millennials are on their phones and all that. It's really something else. And I'm training a guy in janitorial services who's 21 years old. He had no idea about degrees at a university. He had no idea about shit from Shinola. This guy was
part of the janitor job, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's going to definitely have to learn the difference between shit and Shinola to do that job.
So what's your point, Dan? I got
that is day one of the training program.
This guy is not really clued into the world. What are you trying to say?
Yeah. No, first of all, Mark.
This is old man yells at cloud.
I have a background. You don't know my background, so please reserve.
We've seen entirely too much of your background, Dan.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a musician, just like anybody else. Okay, so I said that these kids who are using these iPads and all that, they're looking, as children, aren't they looking for guidance, like where to go in life, this and this and that, like our fathers would do traditionally? We had traditions that we learned on. Now, what tradition do these millennials have?
I'm just going to point out.
As you know, I have 4 grandchildren. Okay, the youngest one, Claire, is 20 months old, and she's just beginning. She can do the letters and the numbers and all that stuff. She can operate an iPad better than I can, and she's not even 2 years old.
Yes, of course.
I have no idea.
That's right.
I have no idea how this is gonna play out.
That's right.
No idea. And you got to remember, I was born. You guys are at least like 12, 15 years younger than me.
Mark, I'm 10 years younger than you, so
yeah,
please.
But 10 years. But I was born in a black and white. I was born in 1954. It's a black and white world, dude. I remember the first color TV show I ever saw in my life, which was Pebbles Being Born. So I remember the world differently. And what I recognize as an older man is I don't get it. I don't feel bad that I don't get it. And it's not my problem to get it. So, hey, I have no criticism. It's everybody's on their journey, and it's for them to figure out. I'm on my journey. They're on yours. Claire is on hers, and I will do everything I can to support her. But I don't have any good advice here. I don't.
Okay, so
there is a tradition among older generations to consider younger generations all unorganized dipshits.
Yeah, but that's not the case.
That has been true of every. That has been true of every generation.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, these kids are they're sharp as hell. I mean, I gotta tell you.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you here, Mark. Don't get me wrong.
They're sharp as hell. Now, I had a if we were on this kind of topic, my mother's my mother's passed away. But her birthday was very recently. And I remember talking to my brothers just realizing, you know what? I could read before I got to kindergarten. That wasn't an accident. I don't remember it, but you don't get to kindergarten knowing how to read if your mother didn't teach you how to read, because you just don't pick that up. So she must have done a great job. Like I said, when I got to kindergarten, I could read. I mean, really read.
I could too, and I also have no recollection of that. I must have figured it out somehow.
Why would I?
Okay. So what I'm gonna say is that we, as this generation, I'm gonna englobe us together in this generation.
Well, you guys, I'm a boomer. You're not a boomer, are you?
I'm not bloody. I was born in '64. I'm a stoner.
Oh, you're the same age as my baby brother. Yeah, okay.
Baby brother. Anyways, I'm glad. I'm sure he loves that. Anyways,
well, he's a doctor and he keeps me alive, so yeah, he's okay with it.
I bet he's okay. I was going to say, I bet he's okay.
He's a really good guy.
Jesus Christ. Anyways, so we're the last of this generation. There is no more of us. And I don't mean that like literally. I mean that philosophically, man. It's over. This new generation, the singularity, man.
I got to tell you something. I'm underwhelmed by my generation overall. Okay, I want to be clear. I'm very underwhelmed by the crowd. You know, when I went to school, I went all public schools, PS 225, all this kind of stuff, and the public school system in the United States when I was a kid was one of the best in the world. Now it's more or less crap. So of my age group, I'm very well educated. I mean, I know how to do a lot of basic things, but I didn't take them in college. I took them in high school.
Yes, yes. And you know how to tell time. You know how to tell time and from an analog clock.
That's a dumb fucking question.
No, no, that's not a question. It's a statement. You know.
No, but there was no such thing as a digital clock when I grew up. There weren't even.
No, I know.
Oh hell, there was no such thing as a digital clock when I grew up.
Okay, you misunderstand me again. What I'm trying to say is that my daughter has a hard time looking at an analog clock and telling me the time like that.
How old is your daughter?
24. Shut up, Mark.
No, I'm sure she's a wonderful child, and
she is.
But you know what the thing is? No, but it's like muscle memory. She doesn't have to understand how to read an analog watch because there aren't any around unless you put it on your wrist. Sometimes I have one. I mean, they're all digital, right? The phone's digital. They look at their phones. They don't look at.
We're the old. We're finished. It's a cutoff.
You may be finished. I'm having a good time. I'm not. You see, my thing is, I'm not lamenting this. I'm fine.
No, I'm not.
There's change every generation, right?
I'm not lamenting it. I'm just saying.
Well, question. I see Danny Sakari has just. I had to teach 3 kids at work how to read an analog clock. Is that a big skill in the future that's going to matter?
No.
Maybe it's not.
No, it won't.
If you didn't grow up looking at analog clocks, it's just less intuitive.
Very well either, by the way.
That's fair.
I mean,
so
and I have seen an example of a Roman water clock, the timer clock.
Fascinating devices.
Water and all that. I mean.
Yes. We're frontier town. It's over. It's a new world.
Tomorrow, Danny will be teaching the youngsters at work how to use the Antikythera mechanism.
That's Army of the Potomac. That's what I've been thinking about. I don't need an analog watch. I don't need a digital watch. I got cardboard counters that I handmade, and I'm playing it. And I figured out today how to make it. I figured out a better, making a game without special rules. Is a fun challenge for me, and so I finally figured out something today that I'm very excited about. So I'm going to continue down this path. It's going well.
Awesome.
What I guess the crux of my.
And by the way, as a thing, Ardy, you guys are talking about low complexity games. As I saw it after the fact, I was out. I didn't hear Rebel Fury mentioned once.
I'm not sure I did mention it, and I feel terrible about that.
I listened to the whole thing,
and it's literally
mentioned Rebel Fury. I was yelling at the iPad.
This dumb bastard. Why is he not talking about Rebel Fury? You're totally right. I don't think it got mentioned anywhere in that show, and it totally should have. It's exactly the kind of game I was fishing for.
But
then again, that might be why it didn't get mentioned, because I've already got it.
So everybody goes, hey, what game should I start? I've never played a war game. Everybody says Case Blue. So I'm now doing, every time somebody says something, Rebel Fury. Why not? I mean, everybody else does it.
It's easier to learn in Case Blue, I can assure you.
It's a lot easier. Yes, it is.
So this totally exists, actually. So In any case.
Oh, I've seen
No,
those.
it's over.
Joe,
The singularity.
those exist, Joe. You can buy them at novelty shops. I've seen them.
Oh, yeah. I
Ray
mean,
Kurzweil.
every generation has this idea. There's a common idea to every generation. Not everybody thinks this, of course, that the new generation is just, they're dummies and they're going to wreck everything, right?
No,
every,
that's not what I'm saying.
I'm not saying you're saying that. And Mark's not saying that. I am saying that a lot of people from every older generation says this about the next generation down.
You know
That's my point. This is not new.
With the world these days, everybody wants. You say I'm from New York. You know, I was talking to these very nice. There were these lost tourists today, and I was helping. Thank you very much, Charles. There were these lost tourists, and wait. This is a good story actually. So I meet these people, and the guy they're kind of trying to do something with the library over. You know, I was over there with my wife. The guy's got a Kurt Vonnegut shirt on. So I said to him, hey, nice shirt. We start talking, and it comes up, you know, what do you do for a living? Well, and Carol says, well, he's a game designer. They go, oh, we know these two young men. One of them was the roommate of one of my kids. They're really good. They have a really successful game company. He goes, which one? They go, Whirligig. You mean Cole and Drew? I mean, I randomly walk into Drew. I walk into Drew's parents of his roommate in college. In New York randomly. I mean, that doesn't
small world, right?
They took a picture of me and they sent it to Cole and Drew, and I'm saying
That's insane.
What a random thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you very much, Perfidious. You know, everybody's got the, you know, what's funny is what Perfidious Albion must have a real name because I don't think he's England. But I meet these guys and go, hey, we were talking online. I go, we were? He goes, well, I'm so-and-so. I go, oh, I didn't know that. I go by my name, so it's funny. Anyway, thank you.
I also don't think Perfidious Albion is actually Charles Vasey in disguise. I don't think.
No, I don't think this is. No, I can tell by the sentence structure. It's definitely not Charles.
That's fair. Yeah, I think I've actually corresponded a little bit.
I just had lunch with him,
Charles.
by the way. He's doing great.
Good. Excellent. I talked to him on Twitter 6 months ago or so about it.
Yeah, we had lunch in London when I was there in the spring. I hadn't seen him. I mean, that's the first time. The last time it was probably like 15 plus years, 20 years since I'd seen him last. He looks good.
I don't think anybody really knows exactly when shipping will be, but
Sakari, it's the Army of the Potomac. I should be done with it January. It'll be out in 2025, but I would say it'd be 2025 around this time of the year, not not the first. It'll be more of the third, fourth quarter game.
That's a
But it's got 5 maps. You know, it's got a lot of maps. You saw the map.
Bloody hell, obviously it is.
Yeah, I love big maps, as you know. So
well, no, you know, I got to tell you, I've had I'll call it convention envy. Okay, so every time I go to a convention, there are these guys, and they've got like the East Front set up with 128 maps and 14 billion counters, and I'm going like, you know, I don't like East Front games as a general rule, so it's hard to get that. So I feel like I'm getting, but my game has got 12 feet of map. Now, to be clear, every single map has its own scenario, so you don't have to put them all together. But if you're at a convention, you got 12 feet of space, which we will have. You'll see it, by the way. We're going to play. If I can get you to play, we're going to play it at SD HISCon.
Awesome. I am 100% up for that.
Yeah, I've already got the table space, so we're going to lay the whole thing out, and it's got like 40 counters on it, so a lot of maneuver room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really rather nice, actually, right? When I started getting into GCACW, it felt like that to me, where you had all this space, but there's really not that many necessarily units on the map at a time, and it lets you really it gives me the player a little extra focus. I felt. Yeah,
and you know. You know, the game is specifically a grand tactics game, whereas GCACW is operational.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've written a couple of times, you know, there is an actual definition for grand tactical that nobody knows. But I wrote it in my newest article. But it's by Jomini defined it as maneuver combinations prior to a battle and during a battle's progression. That's what it's about maneuver combinations. I mean, that's what, and you really are sitting in Grant's or Lee's headquarters, you know, send in that attack. Here's some infantry support. Here's some artillery ammunition. I hope it goes well. You know, that's pretty much what's going on.
Where's that coming from?
No, you're listening to. I'm in New York City, and
so is it from your mic?
Oh yeah. So
I'm
so I'm on
freaking out
52nd Street, and around the corner is NYU, Bellevue, and Mount Sinai. And by the way, just so you know, during the pandemic, 1,000 people died a night around the corner.
That's insane. That's insane.
There were refrigerated trucks with bodies in them on the avenues here. That's how many people were dying. I mean,
You saw that, Mark?
I didn't see the bodies. I saw the trucks.
Jesus, what the hell?
It was a big deal.
I'm telling you, it was horrible. That's what it was. It was absolutely devastatingly horrible. And the people every 7 o'clock every night we were banging on pots and cheering for the people who are trying to keep us alive. But we were also trying to affirm the fact that we're still alive. It's like, we made a lot of noise, but that's what was going on. This place was a horror show.
But it's funny now because I just got COVID and we take it matter-of-factly now.
Well,
like,
3-4 years later,
things have moved on from that. And so Hun 64 New, the book is literally being strapped on the presses in South Korea, not North Korea. So I got to tell you, by the way, I want to compliment this printer they found. I
assume this is not being printed by GMT's regular printer.
I think this printer has I think it is one of their printers, but the actual location of this printer is in Korea. I know that because I could see what they were writing, and it was Korean. It wasn't Chinese. But we sent them this really good manuscript, and these guys went through with a fine-tooth comb. They literally would come back with like 30 corrections they wanted, which was really just for the artists to move the art 2 millimeters this way, and this is a little bit uncut. It was really, it was a level of detail I was very impressed by. And then after we did that twice, they said we're all good now, and I believe it to be all good. So, and I asked Kai the other day, Kai Jensen, who we've had on the show many times, what's the story? She didn't bring up anything about pirates. That was good, but she said she has no idea when it's going to be. So going back to, I'm answering now in a very long-winded way. I'm sorry, Hun 644 New. It is at the printer. When they're actually going to push a button and make the pages come out and bind it and all that. But it's going to be very pretty, and it's even going to have like a little ribbon for like the bookmark thing. It's first class.
Very fancy.
It's very first class.
It's funny that pirates are a factor.
I have to say I was very, and Kai, she's got such a matter-of-fact way of saying
what happens if the books are all on a boat and the boat is seized by pirates? What are we going to do? That's going to be a problem.
Everybody's talking about expanding the designer pool. Maybe we're going to get some new designers.
Well, yeah, apparently they'll have first-hand experience of pirates.
Well, might get some good pirate games out of it. I don't know.
Possibly. If such a thing happens, I guarantee somebody's going to do a postcard game about the GMT shipment getting seized by pirates. I guarantee somebody will do that. I got the
impression, by the way, it wasn't that the pirates were stealing the games and the books. It was that when these guys take over a ship somewhere and they take the shipping containers out of commercial service because they're using it, they steal the container, they're not giving them back. It's not like a milk bottle in the old days where, oh, I'm done with the milk, here's the bottle back. They're not doing that. Like when I was a kid. So I guess the containers, thank you, Hun 644 New. Pirates Be Gone. That's right. Pirates Be Gone. Yeah, so I'm excited about the book, and I'm already figuring out I think I got an idea for a second one I'm going to work on.
Awesome.
But it'll be in this space. I'm not writing a novel or a murder mystery or anything. Having a good time?
I'm not sure what any of those noises meant, Dan.
It's just the amount of stuff that comes out of your head. Aren't you tired?
I gotta be honest with you. I'm at a point in my life where, all journeys come to an end. There's a bunch of things I want to get done before the journey's over. So yeah, I'm working. Everybody, by the way, you saw my post. Everybody goes, "Hey, are you retired?" These people asked me if I was retired. That's how the game thing came up. My wife said, "No, he's not retired. He's a game designer." But everybody goes, "Are you retired?" I go, "Yes," and it's great. That's my new answer. It's just so much simpler. People go, "Oh, it's what I expected." Good.
I also have, after many years of struggle, have learned just to give people the answer they expect sometime.
It
It's
doesn't.
way easier.
I'm not running for office, so I'm not trying to win votes, so it doesn't really matter.
I'd vote for you.
What's
Oh,
the? We're almost out of time, Mark, but I want to ask you how Defiance is coming along as well.
Great question. So it's actually kind of done. In fact,
Excellent.
we've got. So you've heard of the group, the First Minnesota? Have you ever heard that?
Indeed,
term?
I have. They have
Yeah.
a dynamite
So
gaming
those
club up
guys-
there.
Those guys, we got two groups of the First Minnesota are just wailing away on the thing, which is great. Bob Heinzman, who was the developer on Downfall for Butterfield, is a great guy. He's he's doing now. He's got it as a development thing, and I think Doc got back. Really good, deep. We're finally getting to the point where, but I finished the design. I did my thing, and the most heartening thing is there's two things I'll make note of since you asked the question. First off, the game without any special rules is playing out exactly kind of what happened on the first couple of days of the battle. So I'm very happy that that's happening. Sometimes these things go off the rail. Two, it may be the first war game in history that has no victory conditions because nobody won.
I guess that's true. Hadn't thought of it that
Still
way.
going on.
Yeah.
I said, Doc kept saying, well, how do you win this thing? I go, you can't. It's not over. So the only thing you can evaluate in the game is, does the Zelensky government have to shift to another capital, or can they stay in Kyiv? That's the only thing you're determining. But that doesn't end the war. That just means that happened. But there's no.
Talking about Zelensky, when he actually broke into Russia's lines, the first thing I thought is, how's he going to defend that?
Well, just so you know, I do talk to some people who, the Russians they're just they're using chemical weapons again, by the way. There's chemical weapons. This is a great human tragedy.
Serious.
Amongst, by the way, what's going on in Bangladesh, and then what's going on. They're about in New York, of course, the big one is what's going on in Gaza. But I'm telling you, there's stuff going on in about 12 places, and nobody seems to care. Other than when they want to, but there's a lot of horrible things are going on all over the world, in the world. And I will tell you, I recently wrote something for some people, not for publication, but they wanted my opinion on it. And I said, look, this feels a lot like the 1930s. Not that it's an exact copy, but remember, World War II became a global war in 1 week when Pearl Harbor got hit and the Germans declared war on America. Right, so that's when it became a global war. Up to then, you had a Asian regional war. You had a European, European theater. There was some stuff going on in the oceans, but there were a bunch of regional wars, and then, like ink, they just kept spreading until they connected, and then it became a global war. And so, this is how it feels right now. It's like there's a lot of wars going on, but I'm more worried about, do they connect somehow?
Mark, I wanted to ask you, since we're on that topic,
sure.
Putin, is he showing us his hand right now, or is there something because he's showing us what his?
I'll tell you the story of the Gulf War and using Gulf Strike. I'm not going to tell that whole story. But you've heard that story, right?
Yes.
The thing that made that effective was there was a woman in the war game that day on August 2nd who knew Saddam Hussein personally. I mean, she'd been around him. She had taken his measure and all that. So I don't have Putin's measure. I don't think that anybody has had a good handle on that guy. And so when you're asking me anything about Putin, I'm going like, I don't know. I read the newspaper, and they're not telling me much I can understand. So I don't have no idea what Putin's up to. Now Putin, I believe. See, I'm a big believer that people write down what they believe, because I used to have this big argument in the Pentagon. And we get the Chinese would put out their grand strategy, and people go, "This is crap. This is just propaganda." I say, let me explain something. Yes, it is propaganda. I'm not stupid, but not everybody in the Chinese army has a security clearance. So if you want to imbue what the big picture is to your people and your troops, you got to write it down in open link, in plain, not English, but in Chinese. But you have to put it out there with no restrictions so people can read it. Otherwise, you can't educate them. And Yeah, he's probably is. Dick.
This is fair.
So my point is that when you look at Putin wrote a very long, and when I say very long, I mean it's like 100 pages, and what it basically, but here's the précis version, so you don't have to read the 100 pages, but I did. It basically says, I want to reestablish the boundaries and the power of the Soviet Union. That's what it says. And so when you say, what is Putin thinking? I don't know what he's thinking, but I know what he wrote. That's all I can be clear about. And so, and by the way, the situation we're in now, and so now I'm going to be very controversial, but hey, so just to start it off in context, President Obama was probably the most decent man amongst a very small number of people, and to include the current president, who are decent people sitting in the office of the presidency. However, Obama couldn't find a power vacuum he didn't like. So Libya, Syria, the South China Sea, the Crimea, Donbass, all happened in his administration. And Afghanistan was already going bad, and we signed on to a bad deal at the end of the Trump administration. So the world we're living in now was created back in the middle of 2008, 2010, and there was a 40,000-page World Court document saying the Chinese were illegally doing what they're doing in the South China Sea, and the Chinese said, "Screw you," and we did nothing. So power vacuums are always filled, and a lot of this stuff, we've got a lot of expansionist powers. You got an expansionist China, you got an expansionist Russia, you got an expansionist Iran, and in World War II we had an expansionist Germany, we had an expansionist Japan, we had an expansionist Italy. Do you see the melody? You're a musician, Dan. Do you see the melody? It's not the same song, but there's a melody here.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Well, I was going to say pattern. Same.
It's a melody.
It's difficult to not draw parallels.
It's a melody, but it's not the words. It's not the exact tune, but it's the melody. And I think that, so when people ask me about Defiance, so you kind of brought this on, this is why I wanted to do Defiance as the beginning of talking about history while we're still just past that moment in history.
It's funny though, Mark. It's
by the way,
Doc has gotten remarkably better looking this evening.
I've heard this, by the way,
and taller
from Bo's show. I've heard I've been blacklisted. Mo won't let me. Him and Gimpy don't want to talk to me. I've been blacklisted. I think
that would have been the most absurd decision in the history of Wargaming YouTube. But okay, Mark, you're always welcome on here with us. Let me just put it that way. All right, folks, we're out of time. I want to say, hang around. Also, I did hear from Doc. He did in fact have technical problems. We're gonna have Doc on in a couple of weeks.
My best to Doc. I've known Doc for I can't remember.
Sure,
Doc. But say hi for me. I tell him I was a poor stand-in for him. I did my best.
That's fine. He will be happy with it, I think. Mark, I mean, if my fill-in was Mark Herman, I would be. My fill-in gets to be Brant. So if my fill-in was Mark Herman, I would be delighted.
Well, that's very kind. But thank you. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. And Mo, just tell me when I'm off the blacklist.
All right, folks. Everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll see you again next week. Who's our guest next week? One second. Who's our guest next week? No, the Doc will be with us in a couple of weeks. Harry Rowland is our guest next week.
Say hi to Harry for me.
I will be delighted to convey your best wishes to Harry as well.
I love Harry.
All right, awesome. Everybody have a great rest of the night.